Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm Violet Lee, your Tai Chi examiner. Many of you know me because I have written more than 800 articles on the healing art of Tai Chi, Qigong, and meditation. And I have always tried very hard to find interesting topics and individuals to come here to inspire all of us. And today, in the studio, we have Marc Sabin, and I should say Sifu Sabin and Sifu, and now I am Reverend. Yes, Reverend Sabin, and Marc Sabin, and has very interesting journey for life, and I guess you have kind of traveled the past last people being experienced, right? And yeah, you were an actor. I don't know if you still are actor, producer, director, right? And you help people with writing, and I assume writing about the playwrights, right? Or just a general writing.
No, I bet with novelists, playwrights, yeah, I do work
I
on all.
see.
Yep. Hmm.
And then, and he, as I say, he's a reverend, and but he is so-called interfaith reverend, and he married people. Yeah, in case you want to get married, you can find him. And if you have some kind of spiritual questions, and you can talk to him about it. And he has passion for the environment, and he has been working on some initiative, very important initiative, to improve our world and then to make it more sustainable. So I'm just saying, well, since he has done a lot, and by the way, he has been practicing and learning martial art, not just Tai Chi Chuan, for a long time. So I was say to myself, what should I ask him today? Yes, let me just, how should I say, tap his brain and then see if we can talk something about so-called spiritual. And because I'm a Tai Chi practitioner, you all know that. And a lot of time when I'm there practicing, I feel spiritual. But then if you ask me exactly what spirituality is, I cannot really give a very good answer. So with that being said, and now let's welcome Reverend Sabin. And you want to say hi to everyone?
Well, thank you first of all, Violet, for having me here today. And so it's a pleasure to be here and to have this conversation and to see what we can explore as we go down the road of discussing the spiritual aspects of Tai Chi or any of the other aspects of the art as from my perspective.
So were you born into a very religious family, or how did you discover so-called spirituality?
No, I was actually my family is not at all religious or inclined in that way. We were a very secular family. But when I was a teenager, and just beginning high school, I met a fellow who became my best friend for many, many years. And he had open heart surgery when he was 12 years old. He was only the third person in the world to have this particular heart surgery. So he was on the operating table and had passed, was considered dead for some period of time. And he was very deeply involved in spirituality and meditation and exploring the spiritual side of life. And he and I hooked up, and that became really the place that I began that part of my journey.
So he died at a very young age, is that right? Or for some,
Well, he was considered clinically dead for
so
maybe
you
30
say
30
he
minutes.
for 30 minutes, but he came
And
to
then
life.
they revived him. Yep, because he
I
was,
see. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, he had a
So
big scar across the whole of his chest. And yeah, so he and I were best friends, and we really began a lot of that journey together, but not in a religious context, but on our own exploration, reading and studying and meditating.
So what, just curious, what did you
Mm.
study as a teenager?
Well, as a teenager, the first book that we had that we kind of were fond of was a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. Um, and so that was a book that it was a short book, and we read that. Then around that time, I also found the Tao Te Ching. And since I spent a lot of time in nature in the hills outside of where I lived, that text really spoke to me. And the simplicity of the language, but the depth of its meaning was something that just really intrigued me.
That's that's I guess um, that interests me very much so because um, I'm in my 70s, okay, and I have read Tao Te Ching many times myself, and I still have to say there are a big part of it I still don't quite get it. And then, but you at a young age, and I'm pretty sure you were reading something translated into
Oh,
English,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I have read in Chinese, and I have also read many scholars, Chinese scholar, and their interpretation, and I'm still don't quite understand. So you're definitely a lot smarter than I am. That's great, and then so that's amazing as a teenager. And now, of course, you mentioned say because of simplicity, and it's I guess attract to you. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that, I think when you think about what is spirituality, well, there's something that animates us, that changes us from being alive or not being alive. And so that essence, that little spark that causes us to be, breathing and thinking and
Mm-hmm.
aware and conscious, that seems to me to be kind of the stimulus for all that happens thereafter. And so
Mm-hmm.
returning back into that very central place within us is kind of the heart of it. And when I look at, the way that the Tao Te Ching begins, right, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the minute that you put a word to it, it's not the thing you're talking about. The same as if you say a peach is not a peach. It's just the word that we use to describe it. And if you've never tasted a peach, you can say it's sweet, the skin is furry, it's juicy, none of which tells you the experience of eating a peach.
That's so true, and I like how you capture capsule like the concept and makes easy for people to understand. For some of you, if you're new to my writing in my YouTube channel, or you're not familiar with Dao De Jing, Dao De Jing was how should I say, something written more than 2,000 years ago by
Right.
sage and Lao Tzu. And Lao Tzu is a respective way we call him. And his actual name is Li. The family name is Li. So very good. And so can you tell us from that point on, and then until you later on attended the interfaith seminary, right? Study the
Yeah, and
religion and
actually, mhm.
mhm. Go
That
ahead.
actually that
Sorry.
actually came out of my teaching. So I had been studying Tai Chi in San Francisco, where I grew up in the Bay Area, and needed to move to New York. So I moved to New York with my new wife at that time, and we moved to New York. And as we entered New York City, after driving across the country with our possessions, a woman ran into our truck and smashed our truck, and so we were in an accident. And so I was injured, and we landed in our apartment here in New York City. And for about 4 months, I was in recovery from the accident. And so I wasn't practicing at that time. I was laid off practice. So finally, I was released from practicing. And we lived near a park in New York City. So finally, one rainy day, I said, I have to go outside and start again. And I went outside and I went across the street to the park and I started to doing my Tai Chi. And
Did
when
you
I did,
say, did you say on a rainy day? You
on a
went
rainy
to the
day, yeah,
on the Central Park.
it
There
wasn't going to
was
be
a
easy.
strong, there was a strong urge. I have to go, right?
Yep, it was so, and so I started my Tai Chi, and then across the park, somebody stopped and started to watch me. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be bothered by anybody. So I said, I'll just keep going. So I kept going, and as I kept going, he kept watching. And I said, well, this is, I don't, so then I would do longer, and then he got closer and closer. Finally, I did the entire form and the long yang form. And he came up to me and asked me if I taught.
Oh, that's great. Mhm.
And so the next day I said, if you show up tomorrow, I'll come back and I'll teach you. And so that's how my teaching career in New York City started. And his journey was he was trying to change his life. It wasn't just that he was trying to learn Tai Chi, but he was connected with some very bad people and he wanted to leave that life.
I see.
So I started to work with him. And what my work at that time became pretty much a ministry. I was ministering to him using Tai Chi as the method to be able to get him centered and balanced and strong enough that he could make the changes he needed to make and not get pushed around by all the people that were in his life that didn't want him to change. And from
That's
there,
very interesting. So, I, I've been. But first of all, I want to say, I practice a few times in Central Park, and I get a lot of glare. Like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And of course, sometimes people say, "Nice," but
right.
nobody stop me and say, "Can I learn from you?" So that's great. And I was asked a question because people practice Tai Chi Chuan for a while, and gradually, and for myself, gradually, I'm kind of discover Dao De Jing, you know, kind of opposite of your journey. I'm learning Tai Chi first, and then Dao De Jing. So people ask me, say, well, when you teach Tai Chi Chuan, and do you talk about the philosophy part? Uh, you know, and I say, not really. And, only when people learn it for a while, then because we're talking about the yin and yang balance in the form, then I will start talking about the equilibrium and the grounding and so forth. Then I will bring in that part in there. So for you, if I did not hear you wrong, you are saying you're trying to use a Tai Chi Chuan as a way to help people to be how should I say more grounded and to be more calm and then to get away from the trouble, right? So then when you teach, how do you actually teach people?
Well, so for me, Tai Chi is the physical realization of the philosophy that's expressed in the Tao Te Ching. And so when I teach beginners, I just start with the physical components of it. But tied to the physical components, just being able to stand as a human being, what I teach is I teach people the right to be. That each of us has the right to simply be. And that is kind of the foundation of my teaching. And then you move from there. So in the middle of the idea that in movement, there's stillness, and the stillness is in the center.
Mm-hmm,
So in order to rotate, in order to move, you need to
mm-hmm,
have that still spot. And when you're moving, the stillness has to continue. And when you're still inside you, there's movement. So um, one of the one of the things that I will teach is I teach a short meditation that is a standing meditation that we use to understand what it means to release.
Hmm.
And so I call it the Eightfold Path to Relaxation. And it's in, or to release, the Eightfold Path to Release.
So
And
what
I
are
looked at,
those eight passes?
yeah, so what I did was one day when I was in the park, I went out and I spent about 2 hours learning when I slow down, because that's one of the things Tai Chi does, is it slows things down. So you're extending time, which gives you time to reflect and be aware of what's going on. So I did it to find out what happens in the process of releasing the tension that's accumulated in my body. The first thing that I had to do in order to do that, the first step of it is simply to stop.
Okay.
The inclination when I'm standing is, oh, let me fix my shoulders. I'm not comfortable. I got to move my neck, right? And
Hmm.
just stop all that. Even if you're uncomfortable, even if it doesn't feel right, just stop there. Because until you know what's going on, you can't change it. You're only going to add another layer of problems to the problem that you already have. So stop, listen. This is a great Tai Chi skill to listen. Yeah. But listening, you can't really tell what you're listening. You've just attuned yourself to pay attention. And from there, after you listen, now you can start to hear. Oh, you start to hear things, but they're not yet identifiable. And then the third stage is you begin to recognize them. Oh, that's my shoulder. Oh, that's where I hurt myself 10 years ago and I bumped my elbow. And this is
Hmm.
another memory. So you've gone stop, listen, hear,
Hmm.
recognize, and now once you've recognized, the next thing is to acknowledge it. To say,
Hmm.
oh, you have children. So when your children are playing on the near the pool and they're standing on the side of the pool, they're going, look at me, look at me. I'm going to jump in the water. They need you to be able to look at them and acknowledge them to feel content, right? So we've gone through that next step, which is the acknowledgement. Once you've acknowledged them, the next step is to accept it
Hmm.
as it is. No judgment. Take all the judgment away because a lot of times, oh, that's an uncomfortable feeling. I don't like it. Oh, that I don't like that memory, right? You have a lot of judgment. So take all that away. Just accept it as it is. And then once you've accepted it as it is,
Hmm.
now the next stage is the stage where the release happens, which is when you embrace it. You make yourself big enough to include it. Like
Hmm.
you would pick up a child that skins their knees and you hold them and let them cry their
Hmm.
eyes out until they're done. And then, okay, go back and play now. And then you release. Now you're back at the top and you stop again. And you stop, listen, hear, recognize, acknowledge, accept, embrace, release. And so
You
when
know
I
what?
came up with,
Yeah. Good. Sorry for
yeah, when I
interruption.
came up with that
Hmm.
process, and I've taught it to my classes when I have them there, and of course it takes a certain amount of ability to stand and endure because sometimes you're uncomfortable. But that process then is it's just really breaking down what actually happens in that. And so in the simplest form, when you relax, you just go, that's the simplest one. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so I just to extend the time and define that.
Excellent. You know what? It reminds me, and there's a acronym in the psychology, which was, I believe, coined by Terrell Brock, who was a very famous psychologist or psychiatrist. And she talking about the first stage is recognize, and A is for acceptance. And it's what you just said. It reminds me of that way, and that's the method, and they are helping people to get well. And what I like, you, what you just said, you made the R portion or the recognize portion. You how should I say, develop into different stages, and you say, you feel it and you hear it and all those kind of things. I think that's excellent. And yeah, and I also noticed on your website, you, unlike a lot of people, and their website, they talk about, I can help you with your sleep problem and to reduce your blood pressure or help you with balance. But what you said is help people to deal with a fight and flight situation, right? And
That's right.
is that because in New York City, they're constantly competing and
No, no.
fighting everything, or you just observe that in life it's general. We all have the fight and flight and the responses, and then living in the 20th or 21st century now is even worse. And and I think that's great. And so is that what you have found out? Most of your students, and they like to be helped in that area, or they went to you for a different goal in mind?
Well, I think probably the students that will stick with me are the ones that are interested in delving into that inner journey. So to explore themselves. So the ones who just want to be able to wiggle around and move around probably are not going to be the ones that will stick with me. Because when you come to know yourself, that can be a challenging thing for people because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of aspects that we all have them. We all have those experiences. We're all carrying old personality traits and behaviors that we maybe adopted when we were children that still kind of rule us, that we're facing. And I've always seen that the nature of Tai Chi is to release, and because release is kind of the primary lesson, one of the two major primary lessons that we have in Tai Chi is to be able to release. So if you let go of these things, they begin to change, but they change slowly and they change over time. So for people that are interested in that process or who find that process attractive, which again, I think has a lot to do with both the psychological, emotional, and spiritual side of the study, which is all basically walking through the door of the physical.
So now let me back to the question originally I had in mind is about spirituality,
Mhm.
exactly what it is, and then how do you describe it?
Well, that's to be able to discuss what spirit is, because it's one of those terms that the words, again, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The spirit that you can name is not the spirit. So for a lot of people, that word might be problematic. For people, the word soul might be a problem. So I use the term being. That's why I call it the right to be. You're just being who you are as you are, and we're taking away all the peripheral things like the judgments, like the particular things that might be in your life so that you can find the center of your own being. And
Okay.
in that process of finding the center of your own being, and the reason that as you were mentioning, that I look at the the fight and flight response, right? That we tend to be in conflict with other people as part of the nature of human relations. And it doesn't matter whether it's your children or your spouse or your boyfriend or your workmates. There's not about fighting on the street against some mugger or something like that. It's about the fact that where we end up fighting is with the people we care about most.
How about
And
fighting our own ego?
oh, that's the biggest one of all. And so, since you mentioned that fighting your own ego, that's the one that you actually are dealing with when you find that stillness. Because
Mhm.
what happens is, and this is part of the teaching that I do. What and I teach a lot of push hands, so I'm doing a lot of relational work with people. But I'm not doing it to be competitive. I'm doing it to explore those reactions. So if somebody pushes on you, it will either make you bring your hackles up and you want to push back. That's a natural response. For some people, it's, oh no, and they collapse and they lose
Uh-huh.
themselves, right? Either one of those. And so it takes very little to stimulate that initial response.
Mhm.
So I like to work right at that point where it gets stimulated, just before that point where it gets stimulated, where you actually can take a different response to it. The response is to release, as opposed to fight, as opposed to run away, as opposed to get tense. It's like right before that point, you have the opportunity to change your response. And then we expand what I call reining in the fear zone, where you expand the ability to handle more before that triggers on you.
Mhm.
Okay. And also to narrow it down so you're only in your own space. You don't have to, I don't have to push you around,
Mhm.
right? I can simply be in my own space and have integrity here. So the way
Mhm.
I look at the basics of Tai Chi is the first lesson I call structure. That's your
Yes.
posture. That's you
Mhm.
having your bones properly aligned. The
Mhm.
genius of Tai Chi is that every posture is ideal for the human anatomy. It can be both structurally sound and you can also be the most comfortably relaxed. You want to be comfortable in your own body,
You say this so well. You say this so well. Mhm. Go
right?
ahead.
Yeah. So that's to me, that's the lesson number one is to have that. The second lesson is within that to release.
Mhm.
So when you release, now if you find yourself angry or you find yourself tense or you find yourself sad or you find yourself whatever the emotions are going on in you, those need to be released. So I've worked with people who are going through grief. They've lost a loved one. Well, when you lose a loved one, there's a lot of emotion that cycles through you. And sometimes those emotions will make you want to just crumble and pull the covers over and hide away and not deal with life.
Mhm.
Right. But in this practice, the way I work with somebody in this practice is I make them just stand and just let that flow through them,
Mhm.
not run away from it, not to indulge it, but just simply to be.
Mhm.
And then be able to process it. The same thing happens when I have somebody that's dealing with, like my first student who was trying to change his life. Well, he was being pushed around by these people who wanted him to be involved with the drug world and the criminality and things like that. And he didn't want to be that way. But they don't care. They want the old person to be back, not the new one.
Mhm.
So he has to be able to withstand that pushing and shoving without losing himself.
Mhm.
That's not easy to do. And it doesn't matter whether it's on that side of the equation or you're dealing with other people who just have certain ways of behaving that they want to push you around. You may have workmates that want you to behave in a certain way, and that's not necessarily,
Mhm.
who you are.
Mhm.
And how do you maintain your integrity? So being able to be is the central place, central equilibrium. Right?
Mhm.
The profound lesson of Tai Chi is to
Mhm.
maintain your central equilibrium, even when somebody's trying to push you over, even when you're trying to push somebody else over. All of that to come back into, because you're trying to control,
Mhm.
not necessarily violate another person. Hmm? Because a lot of times
Mhm.
people that become highly competitive, it's all about winning.
Yes.
Then if it's
Well,
all about
a
winning
lot. Yeah. Mhm. Go ahead.
or
No, sorry.
or not losing, I don't want to
Mhm.
lose.
Mhm.
That's the ego.
Mhm.
You asked about the ego. So the ego
Mhm.
doesn't want to lose, and the ego wants to win. Well, the ego is not necessarily balanced.
Mhm.
The ego needs to be there. We need an ego. It's not like you get rid of your ego. I don't believe in that.
Mhm.
But your ego should be in service
Mhm.
of something more profound than that. So
Mhm.
when I look at it, that we have in the energy centers that we talk about in Tai Chi, the three dantians, the upper
Mhm.
dantian, the heart, the middle
Mhm.
dantian, and the belly, the lower abdomen,
Mhm.
the lower dantian. That's the one that's in charge of all the movement. That's where you want the ego mind, this one here, that wants to control everything and tell you what to do. You want to let that set an intention, but let it tell the body to take care of it. The
Mm-hmm.
body is very intelligent. The body knows how to do 10,000 things all at once.
Mm-hmm.
The head is very good at doing one thing at a time. It's not good at
Interesting.
multitasking,
Mm-hmm.
not good at multitasking, but one thing it can do. So
Mm-hmm.
if your intention is simply to do one thing, now
Mm-hmm.
you let your body take care of it. But where does
Mm-hmm.
it have to go to get from here to your lower dantian? It goes through the
Mm-hmm.
heart. The heart is the center.
Mm-hmm.
That's where wisdom is seated. Compassion is seated. So if you are letting this be where the wisdom of guiding the ego and the action of guiding the ego in the belly, now you have a harmonious relationship with yourself. And that's a vertical relationship. So the vertical relationship of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? The yin is going down.
Mm-hmm.
And the spirit, because you wanted to talk about spirit, the spirit is the yang energy. That's that spark I was talking about. And it wants to go rise up. Just like a sunflower is
Mm-hmm.
always going to grow
Mm-hmm.
towards the sun. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have muscles, it doesn't have a brain, but it has life. And its life wants to move up towards the sun, but it's held by its roots in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a relationship, it's a dynamic relationship. So when I talk about us being on this earth, we walk on the earth, but our heads are in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
Very cool. Very cool. And I guess even though right now it's like very cool, I think that there are a lot more for me to really to think through, and I really appreciate your talk. And this is, yeah, I think beneficial for me. At least I don't know about you all out there watching or reading the article. And do you normally recommend anything for your students to read and to enhance their knowledge, or you think through the practice, the art, and they will come to the realization?
That's a personal choice for people,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends on how deeply they're working with me. But
Uh-huh.
there are books, there are some great books on the subject of Tai Chi that have been written. I mean, that I can announce or call to attention to. The Tao Te Ching again is one of those books that to me it requires a lot of contemplation. When I read the Tai Chi classics, like the
Mm-hmm.
10 points of Yang Chen Fu, you can read the I used to read those over and over and over and over because every time I would think about them again, or every time I learned something new in my Tai Chi, I had a deeper understanding of the same point. So the knowledge goes
Mm-hmm.
deeper, not wider. And a lot of people that do a lot of reading have a very wide knowledge, but not necessarily deep. So one of the things that I find for some of the people, they can
Mm-hmm.
what I call quote the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
They can rattle off all the right words, but
Mm-hmm.
then you look at their Tai Chi and they go, well, but that's not, you're not doing that. You're saying it, but
Yes, 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 yes. We see a lot of those things. And I even saw someone once wrote an article and they talk about another person's performance. Or just say, you don't know what you're saying, and that person did not know what she was doing either, but that's all okay, right? And then as you said, as we learn more and more and go deeper and deeper, and yeah, the understanding will be very different. And this is great. And so I encounter some situation, and but some people say, "Oh, Tai Chi Chuan, they think it is the Taoist. The Taoist, Taoism actually there are two kinds. One is the philosophical, one is the religious part. And some
Right.
people say, "Oh, I'm a Christian. I cannot study Tai Chi Chuan," and I have heard that before. And how about your experience? And did people ever say, is that suitable for me, for my spirituality, for my religious affiliation, and so? What's your experience in that
Well,
area?
I mean, yeah, I'm not a follower of the religious Taoism. I find it
Me
just like any
neither.
other religion, it's just a lot of rituals and things like that that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the philosophy behind it. So I'm very, very much a believer in that. And if I look at the philosophy of the different religions that I studied, not their rituals and the rest of it, but if I look at the philosophies, there's a lot of wisdom in all of them.
Mhm.
Right. So that's what I've been pursuing. My pursuit has been for wisdom, not necessarily for religion. So when I look at that and when I think about how do you venture into this world of Tai Chi, that's why when the conversations about spirituality, it's not even necessarily something that I talk about at great length because
Mhm.
everybody, when they have something that connects them to that feeling, whether it's that feeling of whatever that makes you alive, that got you to wake up this morning and what excites you about life, well, that to me is the thing that we need a word for so we can use that word spirit. But it doesn't, that's not the thing. That's not what that is. It
Yeah.
could be
Well,
inspiration, yeah, whatever.
yeah, I'm kind of similar. I don't, as I say that, normally I don't talk about the philosophical part of the practice at all. And I also feel a lot of time when people they practice for a while, and the the wisdom will reveals itself to us,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
Yeah, and my personal experience, and I have taught professors from the seminary school and teaching religion, but still from time to time, people thought, Tai Chi Chuan is Taoism, but they don't understand is the more the spiritual part, the philosophical part instead of the religion part at all. And I myself, yeah, I have no affiliation to that part at all. So this is a very interesting, and I really appreciate your time and talking to us today. And do you have any the last word that you want to part us with, and then
No, I think I appreciate you having me here and having the discussion and the questions that you posed are very helpful. I think that for me, again, I just think that myself, that a lot of the teachers that we have, um, excuse me, just a second, I've got to shut off this ringer. Yeah, so I just want to say that a lot of the teachers that we have and that the way that we approach Tai Chi is that we're ambassadors of this art form. I think is one of the most profoundly amazing things that has been created in humanity. It's
mm-hmm,
the I have not found any form of movement that incorporates what Tai Chi does in terms of being able to fit the human anatomy, to fit the human psychology, to fit the human emotions in the same way as an active thing that we can do. And it has all the abilities of doing self-defense, if that's your motivation for it. It also has to do with, for me, I consider myself an advocate of peace. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to resolve things. And I see that in the Tai Chi experience and in the push hands experience, that what you're doing when you begin to resolve the conflict that you have with another person is you really resolve the conflict within yourself. So when you ask
yes,
about the ego, it's
mm-hmm,
really you're resolving your own ego's loss of its own center. So again, to me, the whole purpose of what I do is to teach people their right to be.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I practiced a couple of times in Central Park before. That was my early stage of learning Tai Chi, and I was not that great. so, so people just say, "What?" You know, some of my friends they will say, "So you put yourself out there and then to be judged?" I say, "I'm practicing Tai Chi. I'm not afraid to be judged." And you know, and that's I think that's one of the things I learned is let go of those things. If you're so worried about to be judged, and the more to learn, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. And then everyone, I will put Sifu Sabin, his information down under. And then if you have questions, I believe you can reach out to him or you can ask me and I will relay the questions. And by the way, if you're there watching, you're enjoying what our talk today, and please put a like, okay, or share with your friends. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much, Violet.